So I've got just under an hour to talk about the exciting world of strategy, which is quite hard going at the best of times, let alone at the end of a Thursday afternoon when we're all suddenly going, oh my goodness, is it really only that many weeks until Christmas? I'd forgotten all about it and panicking away. So in terms of the mechanics of the session as we go through, there will be some call and response moments. So we're not breaking you into sub-breakout rooms as we go through, but I am going to volunteer people at different points as we go along. I try and be an equal opportunities picker on us. So if I pick on you once, I'm probably not going to come to you again. And if you are massively panicked when I come to you, you just simply use the magic word pass, and I'll move on to the next person and pull it that way. So that's that. Now, good news, bad news. Bad news, I have some PowerPoint slides. Good news is the way that I share them on the screen, like this, is you can see along the side how many it is until the end. So you can see how close we are until we're finishing as we go along. Now, as we go through as well, if you want to kind of resize yourself around gallery view, speaker view, otherwise you may see me doing a bit of a Captain Scarlet thing with my face because I've got a two-screen thing going on. So I'm looking at some of your faces over here now, and then just checking my prompts and kind of script notes here as we go along that way. So hopefully I won't get too much of a whiplash doing that. However, let's kind of crack into this. First of all, just as a request really as we go along, Nathan's here, which is great. So Nathan, you're excused from us. You can have a gold star already because Nathan's been tweeting about today already. He's been quite active over on social media. There you go. See, credit where it's due. We've got a hashtag co-op-PF. Knock the hell out of that hashtag, people, please. Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever your current thing is, because this is a way, whatever you think of these sessions, if you want to take screenshots and share them, that's fine as well. But that's a way that we can get the co-op gospel out to the wider world. People who didn't know about today, people who might not know that much about co-ops. This is our excuse to get in front of them and help them better understand how brilliant we are. So just to start with, just for me to get a sense check of where you are in the room, I want to get a sense of where your starting points are. So I'm going to ask Chris Smith, Molly, and Tim Morgan, in one breath or less, if you go into a meeting or in a room in your co-op or the groups that you're part of, and people go, we're going to do some strategy today, what's your first honest response? Chris Smith, unmute and go for it.
Great.
Okay, strange. Molly.
I really like doing strategy. I'm unsure how to make it happen.
Okay, great. And Tim Morgan from the desert island.
Yeah, not a desert island, actually, as you can see, nice beach there. But it's, yeah, I'm excited. I have to say, I think we don't talk about strategy enough, and that's a serious answer. Okay,
that's fine. That's great. Let's just kind of take a bit of a wider sense, Paulo. So on your Zoom bars, could you use your reactions button, whichever icon or thing you want, just to kind of quickly flip up on the screen? Those of you who echo Chris, Tim, and Molly's feelings, actually, this is strategy is quite a fun thing to do. So just kind of flip it in somewhere in the reaction screen now. Okay, a few thumbs and things, that's great. Quite a few, okay. Lovely, all different colors too.
I've got no idea what I'm supposed to press.
That's fine. Don't worry.
Yes, I agree. I'll just do this. That's
okay.
Fine.
And then, yeah, all friends here, no shame attached to this. Anyone who's kind of going, I'm really kind of not sure. I just feel like I'm bluffing it. I'm just here today because I want to learn some more stuff and try and work on my bluffers guide so I can get away with it a bit more. Okay, that's fine too. Thank you for being brave and honest with that. So I thought it'd be useful to start with just to give a bit of a grounding of strategy, which is why we do it, why we talk about it. Why don't we just get on and run our businesses? Serve the customers, win the contracts, make the tea. Surely that's enough, isn't it? You know, we don't need all this stuff. The purpose of strategy, just to boil it down, is this. It's to give us a point of direction, something we can all coalesce our energy around as members and say, yes, we agree, this is what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. And in terms of a strategic context, the why as well. I think very often when we create strategy, we forget the why. Why are we doing that particular thing? Why is this the right time to be doing it and not next year? So some of the stuff I want to go through and introduce you to this afternoon is a range of probably oversimplistic tools and images and frameworks that you can start to reflect on and go, that seems to make sense, but I'm not sure it would work for us. Or, wow, that's brilliant. I'm now going to nick that and use it in everything I do. So the idea of this is to absolutely be very practical, very directive for doing this. So as we go through, if you want to take notes as we go along, that's great. I am going to pause as we go through again and volunteer other people as we go through. So just because you've got your cameras off does not mean you are automatically exempt from me picking on you. Having your cameras off to me is the equivalent that you are sitting at the back of the class. And if you are sitting at the back of the class, part of me wants to really kind of call you out and drag you in. So that should hopefully encourage you to be a bit more visible to your fellow participants this afternoon. So points of strategy. Okay, so some tools and ideas. When we talk about strategy, my idea is that very often we start with talking about the business we're operating. We start with talking about our marketplace and our industry, what we've done before, where we might go next. And that kind of misses the point. That's fine if you're a regular private business, if you're a charity, if you're a government service. We're not, we're cooperatives. We should be all about our members. So when we come to do that piece where we approach creating a strategy, actually our starting point should be, what do our members think? What do our members prioritize? What do our members bring to us? So again, because when we create and work through that strategic plan, how much of that is within our members to be able to drive through? What is it within our membership as a cooperative that we can resource the plan with? And where do we need to go outside? Remember, Principle 6, cooperation amongst cooperatives, and the early Rochdale pioneers, the early cooperative societies, all resourced their plans from their members and worked it through that way. So this is about kind of going back to some of that historical basics with it. So just to kind of briefly describe a model to you to work with. So this is where you will need a pen or a piece of paper handy, or if you're watching on catch up, pause it and go and grab one and come back. So the camera's just slipping a bit on the focus. So you need to draw 2 lines with your pen and paper, okay? You draw one horizontal and one vertical, so they intersect in the middle. And you therefore have 4 boxes, hence the very unimaginatively named Adrian's 4 boxes. Okay. Now there are 4 words I'm going to give you now, and 1 word goes in each box. Okay. First word, vision, as in sound and vision. Put that in your box. Second word to put in your next box is in, to be putting something in. Okay. Third word for your third box is out, O-U-T, to take something out. And the last word to put in your last box is never. Never have I ever, never will I ever. Okay. Now, just before I kind of explain the rationale behind this, I'd want to do a quick Darren Brown magic moment with you all. So for those of you on screen, now just look down on what you've written and how you've laid it out. If you have written the word vision in the top left box, do some kind of reaction on the reactions button or wave on the screen for me now. Wow, look at that. It's like I've been able to come through the camera into your laptops and peer at you. How spooky. Anyway, that's my magic trick for today. So the idea, okay, and the idea being that as a cooperative, we give this to our members, or those people on our management committees, whoever's leading that strategy. And we say, okay, do it individually and then collate it anonymously afterwards. And the vision piece is really key. What is it that people think this cooperative is there to do? What's its purpose? Because to each of you, that's blindingly obvious. It's so fundamentally clear. Everyone else must be thinking the same thing, but very rarely do we sense check that with each other to pull it out. So let's just check, actually, we've all got the same idea about broadly what it is our cooperative is here for. Next box is in. What is it that members would be willing to put in to the cooperative for it to succeed in the future and prosper? Remember, a cooperative exists so that its members can collectively achieve together what they could not by themselves. So we have resources we can bring. That could be time, it could be cash, it could be equipment, it could be contacts. What have we got? You know, what would people be willing to give? Not have to, but what's that kind of pool of stuff? And then out, this is a relationship. Members have a relationship with their cooperative. In order to remain balanced and not fall over, what do members need to be taking out of the cooperative in return for their engagement and participation and investment in it? And where do they never want to go? Where's that thing or that activity or that ask that's just too much? That would be the point that they say, that's it, I'm walking away now. This is not right. And then collect it all together, you know, anonymize it and then share it back amongst the wider membership. And that gives you a really good, I would suggest, a really good starting point to say, okay, this is who we are as a body of members, as a cooperative. And now we can start to think about strategy and where we go next. Now we've got a more realism about where our members sit. Now, let me just pause briefly. Sarah M, with the glasses and the brown hair. Yes, yeah, that's Sarah M. Do you want to unmute just for a moment? I just want to kind of get a sense of one breath, immediate reaction, that 4 boxes. Good idea, bad idea, crazy idea?
I get where you're coming from.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's I just want to say. And then Simon Whitehouse, because you're on the screen next to Sarah M. Your initial reaction to that 4-box thing as a tool that leads into the preparation work on creating strategy. Do you want to unmute yourself? Just an initial reaction.
Seems like a good way of gathering a lot of content to then work with.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And again, the reason I'm kind of pausing after all these points and just doing a quick round robin like this is so the rest of you can get a sense of, this is what I'm thinking about that idea. What are other people thinking about it? So you can start to reflect on it and work it up together. Okay, let's talk about the other elephant in the room there, where we're talking about cooperatives. We're not like private businesses. We're not like charities. So why should we behave like them? Why should we use their language and terminology and tools? When we talk about creating strategy, very often we would use frameworks and terminology that are used or propagated by business schools. And a lot of people in some cooperatives may say, but we shouldn't, because we're different. We don't want to be tarred with the same brush. Those tools and references and materials were designed on the basis that you are a business that exists to make money for the benefit of investors, of wealthy individuals to begin with. So are we kind of becoming complicit in perpetuating that ideology if we use their tools and frameworks? So there's something about, even when we start that process of strategic planning, if we're going to use tools and frameworks that made to us seem absolutely common sense and brilliant, there may be some members, some people involved in that process who have a problem with them. And that's important to understand and to scope out in order that everyone's properly engaged with those subsequent processes of discussions and decision making. Sarah M, I can see a hand waving. Don't be afraid. At any point, if you want to query or challenge, just unmute and interrupt me and heckle. That's absolutely fine.
So you're talking about, other traditional businesses' ways of generating strategy, but we just put in, as co-ops, we're kind of purpose-led businesses anyway, and in part of the constitution. So it refers back to that. So that's how it's relatable to the membership. And we've got higher levels of engagement and commitment and motivation because we work as a worker co-op generally than a straight business. So it can be more effective at delivering on strategy.
Definitely. And for worker cooperatives particularly, there's some recognition coming out from the city regions in terms of the kind of new political structures that are emerging, that worker cooperatives have higher productivity for their local economies because of that investiture that members have as employee members and those governance structures that facilitate that. But also cooperatives, particularly in the worker sector and sometimes the housing sector side as well, people can come with particular ideologies. And it's important, again, go back to that 4-box, that vision piece. Let's just make sure that actually all of our members have enough commonality between why they think we're all here as cooperatives. I did some work with a worker cooperative many years ago, still haunts me to this day, because they'd forgotten their history. scarily. But anyway, the key thing of that is there were 11 members in this cooperative, and they were really struggling to make decisions. They were struggling to get a strategy sorted. They couldn't seem to coalesce and agree around anything at all, even tactical, operational stuff. So I took it back to, in part of that 4 box. I just took the vision point. I said, I gave everyone a Post-it note. I said, right, write down on the Post-it note why this co-op exists. Why was it formed? I don't know any of you, so I don't need handwriting. So I'll just, it's anonymous, it's safe. And 11 Post-it notes came back, all with 11 different reasons. So actually that ideal, and some of them were highly politicized, some of them were much more pragmatic and practical. But that disparity meant, because they'd never explored it, they couldn't create strategy. They didn't have enough commonality between them. So creating that consensus around vision before we get into the strategy tools is really important. But I need to get into the strategic planning tool stuff, because I'm halfway through the session already, and I'm going to get in terrible trouble with John if I ever run this, let alone yourselves. So let's kind of crack on with this. Okay. Strategy is underpinned, is the way that this mission and vision piece of any organization gets developed. And I would suggest, in terms of, again, what we're trying to do through this session is just kind of ramp through and give you some initial quick suggestions of tools and approaches that may or may not be useful. It's not the complete toolbox, but it's a starters for 10. One of my suggestions is, if as a body of members we're coming together and saying, let's kind of refresh our vision. What is the vision for our vision as a cooperative? Now, I would say the vision is not where the co-op is going to be. That's the mission. The vision is, what's the future utopia that the cooperative wants to see come about? And the way that they often imagine that is like, everyone, here's my magic wand. Every member gets to go with the magic wand, but it's only got one wish. So what one wish do you think should be happening in the world? Everyone should have a jetpack. Okay, maybe. Everyone can have the option to die as they want to. Every child has the right to a free school meal. That's something about that. What do, as our members, what's kind of driving the kind of fire in our belly of our members? And then how does the cooperative that we've come together, how can it help to achieve that, to work it forward that way? So again, so we've got that grounding. We know as a cooperative, we know who we are as a body of members. We've got that, hopefully, enough coalescence, enough kind of middle merging point around what the role of the cooperative is supposed to be and why it exists, what that role is contributing towards in a bigger world. And then we can start to get into some of this planning stuff, finally, as we go along as well. Okay, so thank you, Stu, for that. So let me just kind of check that. Nigel at the Fox and Goose. Magic wands. Have you ever been given a magic wand to play with in strategy planning activities?
Right at the beginning of the Fox and Goose, yeah, when we wrote our vision and we did a business strategy back in 2016, I think it was. Do you think we should have more use of magic wands? Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be creative with them. Yeah. You'll never get anywhere.
And this is it, take the shackles off, because remember, it's a magic wand. It means the normal laws of the universe do not apply. You're not constrained by all the usual, ethically brainwash people if you want. It's a fantasy wish, but it starts those conversations. It gets members thinking about things that maybe they didn't think they could before. It really unleashes the potential to bring people out. So all of this, of course, is now based on this idea of, well, we could start with some stuff. We build on what we're currently doing, or we're starting from scratch. Some of the work that I do with some cooperatives is kind of a review, strategic review. Are we doing the right things? Are we doing the right stuff? So if we had world enough in time, I'd love to go around and organize you all into aligners. Who's part of the oldest cooperative in the room this afternoon? John Boyle at Co-op Parties probably got a good claim on that to begin with, because the Cooperative Party. John, unmute, just remind us, how old is the Cooperative Party now?
103 years, but I'm a member of Central England. We go back to 1854. So, but anyone who's a member of the group, which I am, goes back to 1844. Heart of England goes back even earlier. There you go.
Yes. And that's a whole other controversy, isn't it? Which is, what was the first cooperative in England? The start of the, so what, I think
Chatham and Woolwich stocks.
Yeah, so I think the way that we politely cover this now within ourselves is we say Rochdale was the start of the modern cooperative movement, but it goes back. I have records, I have kind of references to stuff on Babylonian clay tablets in terms of, you know, going back to cooperatives. Anyway, this isn't history, this is strategy. History is another session for another practitioner forum. This idea of, but again, so John, in some of those older societies, things change over time, and any business, any organization, any group starts to do stuff, introduces stuff, which at the time is a brilliant idea. But that was then, this is now. It may no longer be such a good idea for us to keep doing it. And it's hard to have those conversations amongst membership to say, well, we like doing the basket weaving because Joyce introduced it and we all love Joyce. And it's something which we all kind of get a bit of a kick out of. And if we're really honest, we're not really sure it's the right thing for us to carry on because it takes time and energy. And should we be using that time and energy for other things? So the idea of this chart you've got on the screen here is something called organized abandonment. And its purpose is to try and depersonalize for a cooperative or any group all the activities and services it runs and say, are they still the right things to be focusing on? And the way you use it is you take every activity that the cooperative does and you boil it down to two numbers. Number one on the axis going up, how much cash does it generate? Because a cooperative is a trading business. It has to wash its face. It has to be generating or seeking to generate a return for its members' commitment and investments. It should be building rainy day funds. It should be thinking about how does it keep growing and perpetuating this fantastic model and transforming communities. It needs cash to do that to some degree. So how much cash do these different things bring in? And then against that at the bottom, we go back to that idea of what we did before, that four boxing, that mission vision stuff. If we've got an agreement now about what the purpose of the cooperative is in terms of bringing about that future utopia, how well do each of these activities actually help the cooperative get a bit closer to that? So it gives us a depersonalized objective perspective that we start to drop everything on, and different bits appear in different places. And then as members, we have a discussion and we say, okay, here's the cutoff point on each axis. If it's below this line in terms of bringing in cash and contributing to that mission vision piece, we should really get rid, because it's sucking out energy and resource that we need to better spend on the other stuff. If we're going to still be here in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years for the next generation of cooperators coming through. But it also helps you to create that balance of activities as well. That it's okay to have some activities that do not generate a lot of money, as long as you have other things that are, and as long as those things that aren't generating the cash are still actually front and center, really directly related to that purpose, to that change that the cooperative is bringing about. It helps people reaffirm that commitment. So let me see, I'm going to pick on Simone H next with your earphones in. And so Simone H, organized abandonment, first impressions, good, bad, bonkers?
I think it makes perfect sense.
Okay. Could you see it being you? Could you see you or someone you know using it in a practical way?
At the moment within my co-op, not at this point in time, but okay. I think it's something that could definitely be used, yeah. Fantastic,
okay. And that's the idea of this session. We're a format for practitioners. We're sharing our toolbox with each other. Not everything is going to be directly relevant to all of you, or it might not be just yet. As Simone says, there may be a future time that says, actually, yeah, this is now the time we pull it out. Okay, now the next one. So let me kind of have another quick sense check. Everybody get out on your reactions buttons again. Fingers at the ready. Really want to see those fingers ready to press the buttons for reactions. Who's heard or ever done a SWOT analysis? There's a few thumbs appearing. Okay, also few people you found the clever new zoom buttons. Okay, yeah, there we go. Fantastic. Okay, so few of you have. So a SWOT analysis is often referred to as the bedrock of any strategic plan. It's that basic workings out of saying, navel gazing, really. What have we got going in our favor? What, if we're honest, we need to fix about ourselves? And when we look out of the window, what's going on in the world that may be helpful or hindering to us? And then that gives us a perspective to work that up. And that may be useful, or it may not be. So again, just to kind of suggest, go back to the idea of the 4 boxes. SWOT is 4 boxes. My suggestion about bringing the members, rooting it in where the members are at, are also 4 boxes. Again, SWOT is kind of, can be quite political. It's come out of business schools. It's used by big businesses all the time. Some of our members may therefore struggle ideologically with it. And actually, even within the wider business community, private business community, and the kind of the business thinkers and some of the business schools, there's now a question of saying, has the SWOT had its day? So just to kind of suggest this as we go through, there's another idea. So very often we talk about strategy as saying, how do we fix, where do we go next? And sometimes the best way we can help people to think about that is to say, well, let's frame it around a problem. How are we going to fix this problem? Ala and Adam, I can see you use the reactions button of an agreement to a vote, which is the green tick. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm not sure if I can kind of pull it off. John, maybe you can kind of, oh no, there goes. Anyway, that's fine. So just wanted to check. So Ala, I just wanted to say that just to check that you weren't wanting to say something or jump in. It's just Zoom confusing. It's just Zoom messing with you and doing that, yeah? Okay, fine. So back to this. So this idea of, should we be doing SWOT analysis or not? Well, if we're engaging our members in the strategic planning process, maybe the best way to do it is to give a focus. As a cooperative, how do we best grow the business? Well, that could be anything. Let's narrow it down. Let's give people and frame it as a problem. As a cooperative, we want to, should we, the competition, the supermarkets are moving in. How do we keep ahead of the game? Frame it in an action-orientated sense. Much easier for people to engage with that. And then the processes will become, well, we can start to imagine scenarios then. Well, what if we did this? What if we did that? So we create some scenarios. And then we can test those scenarios by saying, well, if we did that plan A, plan B, or plan C, what would we need to be true? What would we need? What resources would we need? What would we need to have or to happen for that plan, that scenario to come about? And we go back to our 4 boxes then to say, okay, well, as the members, we know we have all this resource between us, so we could do plan A and B, but not plan C. And that starts to narrow down the options. And then we start to get someone in like me. I always kind of say, I'm the glass half full guy. Okay. I'm glass half full because it means I'm always looking for the next tap. But we then kind of got to challenge some of those ideas. Well, we could do this, we could do that. We know we could do this. Well, okay, what would get in the way of it actually working if we put it into practice? So we scope that out. And then we find ways to be a bit of a mad scientist. How could we experiment with that to start to test to see how well it might take? And then we come back to a decision. So it's much more action orientated, creating a strategy as action, as activity. And that can often galvanize people, excite people, bring them in ways that suddenly doesn't seem quite so stuffy and it's another away day. Again, remember, this session is about how we look at strategy as a cooperative. And that's our approach, is trying to suggest ideas and approaches to say, how could you in your cooperative go back to your wider membership and say, we're going to create a strategy in a way that allows all the members, whether we're a small worker co-op or a large retail society, ways that we could use models like this that involve the wider membership much more actively in this process. So ditching the SWOT analysis and using a possibility, a scenario framework instead. Let me kind of see, who haven't I picked on it just to get a first view of this. Now, let's see if someone's trying to hide at the back of the room. Hayley Marsden, are you there? No camera or sound. Hayley Marsden? Hayley's probably panicking. Okay, let's then. Oh, yes, there you are, Hayley. Hello.
Hi.
So, Hayley, the question to you, just again, an initial response. So let's say we're not going to use a SWOT analysis, but if you in your cooperative, we're using this action approach of saying, let's do scenario planning instead. Let's frame it around problems. Do you think that, is that a good idea? Might it be useful? Is it completely bonkers? What's your initial impression?
I think it's helpful to do a bit of that, kind of do that department and frame it around initial work out how you're going to work through that.
Okay, fantastic. So I think I've understood that. For those of you who were struggling, Hayley's connection seems to be a bit spotty at the moment. So I'm pretty sure she's not talking to us from the bottom of a fish tank in terms of that bubbling through. But Hayley, if I've understood the gist of what you were saying there, it's about saying this could be a useful approach to supplement a wider set of tools and planning processes to draw people in. Okay, now, for those of you watching along the side, eagle-eyed, you'll see there's only 4 slides left. We're over 2/3 of the way through the process and about 20 minutes left on the clock. So this is okay. Now then, so we're generating all these ideas. We're starting to pull stuff in. So it's pull stuff in as we go. So about that. There we go. Get over that. How do we actually start to write this up into a plan? How do we make it into a format that we can share out with everyone, with our members, as a management tool, as a review process as well? So my idea is we kind of play a bit of circular rings, really. We just draw a load of circles. And again, this is a way that I've done this with a lot of groups, highly participative. It's a really good way to get everyone's voices involved very quickly, either in a room or on a Jamboard over Zoom. And we draw a few circles, and each circle is a point in time away from now. So in this one I've drawn here in the middle, the center bullseye in that target is today, 18th of November, 2021. And there's 4 kind of spiral themes going out. So the question would be, in your cooperative today, 18th of November, where is it at in terms of its cash position? Where is it at in terms of what it offers? Where is it at in terms of its people and members? And where is it at in terms of the systems and processes that it uses as it goes through? Now, we've gone through this idea of creating scenarios and options. We've gone through a process of saying it would be great to do this in the future. This is now the staging process. It's okay, let's say 2 years from now, 2023, we've decided that our cooperative is going to become the #1 retailer in cool sunglasses. No, that's rubbish. Sunglasses can be anything. Our cooperative is going to become the #1 retailer in fezzes. We're going to be known as the Fez, the place to go for fezzes by 2023. Now, that's the ambition. Brilliant. How do we get there? What are the stepstones we need? So, okay, so 2023, we're the #1 place. Today, we don't sell fezzes at all. They're just a great, cool idea. So at some point between now and 2023, we need to introduce the product range. So if we're introducing the product range, then in those circles, the first circle, 2022, says we have an established product range of fezzes. It's an introduced range. We then, against that, in terms of mapping it against the going around the circle, we need some systems. Well, we may need a stock order system, a manufacturing process, quality control system. Go around the circle again. Well, we haven't really got anyone who knows anything about haberdashery. So we should probably try and recruit some people. So we've got the staff we need and the expertise we need to know what we're talking about when we're sourcing and producing these fezzes. Move around the circle again. Well, to get those people and make them in post, we need to have some more cash to support those jobs. So it starts to give us those milestones. So we've got that overview strategic plan. By this date, these things need to be in place. And if those things are in place, we can then leapfrog on those to the next stage of the circle and work it out. That's the strategic plan. We give that to our management team, or we delegate it down, and it's up to those people then to say, okay, we make it happen. We'll find the money, we'll recruit the staff, but we know why we're recruiting them. We know what it's for. And that means everyone in the cooperative understands, however bonkers it might seem to be doing it, this is why we're doing these things at this time. Because if we do this here, because we're doing this bit here, that means we can do that bit over there, which means in the future, that thing can happen there. A nice, simple visual as we go through. Let's see, Kirsty, I kind of name checked you earlier with your bookcase, just to come to you for a quick one breath reaction. Circles in the sand, tabs going around and all that kind of thing to create that strategic plan. What's your initial view? Just pop your button and let's hear it.
It's really all about being proactive as opposed to reactive, because if you're having to be reactive, you're already behind the curve. And I think I work for ScotMed. We were just talking about, long-standing cooperatives. We've been around 162 years, and sometimes it is harder the longer you've been to be able to see where you're going, because you've had so many things in place already. It's more difficult to try and get new and exciting ideas understood in place.
Thank you. Okay. And Kirsty, in terms of what you've shared there, this is one of those moments where I'm glad we're all on Zoom and in a room, because you mentioned 162 years. So I've got a sense that there's a bit of rivalry now happening between you and John in terms of ages of co-op. So if we were in a room, this could get a bit heated, but we can keep you at a safe distance for doing that. So, but you're right. This is about getting members excited about saying, let's reimagine the future on our terms in a way that's quite visual. And again, depending on the other sessions that you may have been in practitioner forum today around, for example, in the round before today, this slot, there was one about cognitive diversity. So again, this is a really accessible way that people can share ideas and start to map that understanding collectively as well, without it being overly complicated. Now, however, at some point though, we really need to start to drill down into the detail and maybe put this into something that makes a bit more sense and is a bit more traditional. Now, I have never been a fan of the traditional business plan, which sounds a bit odd because I teach business planning. I'm recognized and endorsed by the Institute of Small Business and Entrepreneurship for my approach to business planning, but I think in most of the time, they're a waste of effort because no one ever reads the whole thing. They're always out of date. So I much prefer something called a canvas. So again, just a quick reaction on the screens, if we can. Who's heard of canvases before? Business model canvases, lean canvases, anything like that? No? Okay. So this is worth, okay, one or two names, great, fantastic. So this is worth you're looking into a bit more. So go onto Google image search or Bing image search or something, just put in business model canvas, lean canvas, community enterprise canvas. It's a business plan on a page, but visually. It's the idea of saying, let's just scope this out, a bit like the circles, but with a few more specific prompts. So we've got our strategic plan. We know where our future's heading, where we're going, but we need to put that into a bit more of a structured plan. We need to capture some of the detail and the workings out behind that, because we may be going to the bank, cooperative bank naturally, or Triodos Bank. We may be working with a partner organization. We may be saying, actually, we're bringing in new management roles, so we need to make sure that they've understood the detail of how our business model as a cooperative works. So there's all sorts of canvases. Now, and this is, excuse me, in this instance, this is called the lean canvas. And there are different variations out there. So don't just say, oh, we must use this one. Have a shop around, have a look. So whatever you're thinking it is, blank canvas. It's pricing canvas, marketing canvas, community finance canvas, and so it goes. But this starts to break down those aspects of your business model, again, at a really top high level. So if you look on the right-hand side of that image, that's all about the outside world. Who are the customers? And if we're introducing new products and services, who are the early adopters? Who are those people who are going to be first in line, who want to try it out, who will be willing to pay more, willing to take more risks with it, willing to act as your advocates and ambassadors when you introduce those services? The channels, what are the routes to market that you're taking as a cooperative with what you're doing? Your unfair advantage. What is it in terms of how you work as a cooperative, or how the fezzes are being manufactured and offered, which makes you special, that everyone else looks and says, oh, that's not fair, we should have done that. Well, that kind of makes you really stand out, gets noticed. We also have things in this canvas as well that talk about key metrics, which are the key numbers. And a few of you have mentioned this already as we've gone through this afternoon. Cooperatives are different types of businesses. There's a set of ethics. There's a longer term future. So if we're going to be successful and sustainable as a cooperative, we need to track some numbers which are not just based on our financial accounts, but stuff to do with our membership and our mission and our vision. So what are those measures or those themes that the cooperative is going to track on an ongoing basis to make sure it's, if it's their early warning flags or their markers for celebration and success? And it also asks about, where is the cooperative incurring costs? And where does it generate revenue and sales from? So this idea of a canvas, again, it takes those 3 circles, but it just takes it to the next level. It puts in another level of detail as we're going around. Now, again, that's a massive kind of 90-second introduction to something that most of you have never really seen before. But again, they're there. You can look them up later, absolutely. Let me just quickly pick on someone again. Danielle Budworth. You're hiding at the back of the class. So Danielle, first impressions of this in one breath. Useful tool or just?
Yeah, definitely very useful. I think it's great sometimes we do all the things, but actually to put it down in a plan and, something to refer back to that's a little bit more in depth than a SWOT analysis as well. It's great.
And again, it's something that's really visual. They can be printed off, they can be stuck on the back of doors or cupboards or inside of vans and delivery trucks. There's that constant reminder to all the members throughout the business. This is how we're working. This is how your role fits into the wider scheme of things. It creates that engagement. It renews that commitment. People can understand how it's come to be and why it's working that way. 2 slides to go. About 10 minutes or so left. I'm just looking to John at Co-ops UK. He's not looking too panicked at the moment, so I think I'm okay so far. Great, that's good. For those of you who've got cameras on, I've just been trying to keep an eye on things as well. So none of you, I think, have fallen asleep or pulling faces in disgust. So I think we're still okay so far with this. Okay, last 2 slides. So this has been about the doing of the planning process, starting with the members. From that, layering on the point of, well, what's the point of our cooperative day? What's it trying to do in the world? How does it then go out into the world and start to shape and influence that world more and better? And then we work out the detail of that to make it go forward. One of the things that I think we don't do enough of is stop and gaze at our navels and say, how was it for you? Did it make sense? The traditional model is we have a board away day that kind of says, okay, let's reflect on what happened, and so it goes. We need to design this reflective process in more and better, and to include the wider membership on an ongoing basis, I would suggest. And it becomes a cycle because things are changing in the world all the time. So in terms of the response to those wider stimuli in the marketplaces, the competition, the industries, the legislation that's happening to us, how does our cooperative best respond to those as they happen? And more importantly than that, we are a cooperative. We have a turnover and a churn in our membership. As much as we might like to think it, none of us are immortal. Our cooperatives and memberships will change over time. So we need to have a process of refreshing this on some kind of cycle. So having a review process as we go through. Now, let's just see, let me kind of put a question to you on it before I pick on someone. This loop cycle that I've got there on the screen going round. Does anyone recognize what it's based on or who I might have borrowed it from? I mean, admittedly, we're not in the HR strand. So if we're in the HR strand, people would be all over this. This is also known as a quality management circle. And it's also quite famous because this is, I've kind of changed the wording in some of the boxes a little bit, but it's kind of the investors in people model in terms of what we do. So this idea of saying, it should be part of a natural flow of all of our processes to make sure that of sense checking with our members, of making sure the business is still working in the right way. So having a review and a flow cycle is really important. Adam Cole, quick question to you. In terms of your experiences with your cooperatives, what would act as a barrier to being able to engage in a reflective cycle like this?
I think that you make some interesting points, and I like the way that you brought in all the stuff about lean, and that's interesting. But I think quite a lot of those practices or frameworks or project management type things tend to specify the customer, and that being the customer at the end. And what I liked about what you talked about is putting the worker in that process and involving the worker. I thought that was an interesting way, you know, with the 4-box model. So that's when I reflect on that process, that's the kind of implementation that I'd imagine.
Fantastic. So let me just kind of also pick it up to who haven't I picked on yet? Let me pick someone else who Ellie, with very impressive looking wallpaper there. This idea of a reflective cycle in terms of we go through a strategy, your cooperative's gone through this process of creating strategy. What might stop it then following through in 6 months' time or a year's time to go through this kind of reflective loop to say, let's kind of make sure it's right or tweak it? Is there anything?
I feel that ideas like this are great initiations when they're first implemented, but actually they don't embed into BAU. And when it doesn't embed into BAU, actually you lose sight of it. So you talk about investors in people, absolutely. When you did that, I thought, yeah, I recognise it from there, but I also recognise it from ISO 9001, the quality management. So I see where that comes from, and I always find that we're not very honest with ourselves. Sometimes we do this just to tick a box. Sometimes we do it because actually it's what's needed. And I think if it's the latter, there's more transparency and more acceptance of these processes. However, if it's the fact that we're just trying to tick a box for a certification, then you don't embed it as BAU. And that's where I think organisations struggle.
Yeah.
But these accreditations are only served best if they are BAU.
Yeah. I think you had the day, it's that idea of saying if an organisation is familiar, so it already has investors in people, then it's relatively easy to nudge that a little bit and say, well, look, let's layer in a little bit on the cycles we're already using to pull that out. And my idea as well is that if these processes, if we can really kind of crowbar them out so the wider membership starts to get involved, the wider group of colleagues in our societies get involved as well in some way, it embeds it more because it creates a culture and an expectation that says we're going to be accountable to our members. We're going to be led by and influenced more by colleagues. They're going to want to hold us to account on this, as they should be, because we're a cooperative.
Yeah.
So there's something there that says, well, and if we don't want to be more accountable to our members, then why are we a cooperative?
Absolutely.
So working it that way. Now, the last point I wanted to say, again, those of you who are eagle-eyed, there's only one slide left. What could I possibly be holding back as the big finish to all of this? That kind of does it. Well, again, we've talked through lots of different tools, processes, ideas, the rationale behind them. And what I've tried to do as well as we've gone through this last kind of 50 minutes or so is to really focus on the emphasis of we are cooperatives. How do we do these strategic planning processes in a way that reflects our identity as a cooperative, that distinctiveness in terms of our membership? One of the big challenges that's often leveled against cooperatives in terms of their governance is it takes time. It's a long, slow, arduous process. Consulting everyone is really important. Building consensus is important, but it takes time. I would suggest it doesn't have to. This is something you can look up online. I did it a couple of years ago. I was asked to work with a group of people who were coming together to form a food co-op. And they said, we've got a vague idea about, we want to set up some kind of food co-op on the edge of this park, in terms of Longford Park in Manchester, but we're really not sure how it should work, what it should offer, what it should do. So I created a crisis point. And I said, okay, we've got everyone around. None of them had met before. And I set a timer for 60 minutes. And so again, 60 minutes, we're going to have what you can see, there was 2 sheets at the end, which is the strategic plan and the business model in less than an hour. And that included posing for and sharing that photograph on social media. So I always kind of say, never let a good crisis, there's an adage of never let a good crisis go to waste. And actually the whole of the kind of the football co-ops, supporters trusts, in terms of all those clubs that are now in ownership of the fans through cooperative and mutual models, most of those have come about because there was a crisis at the club. The club was about to go bust. If we create a sense of urgency about this stuff, it tends to engage people a bit more. And if we can say, this is the point of doing it, not just we're going to do it and there's an hour at the end. I'd said to people, we're going to do this. And then in 59 minutes time, because I need 60 seconds to take the picture, type it and press send, we're all going to stand outside we're going to post it on social media. So there was a clear thing that people knew what was going to happen with it afterwards and where they took it afterwards. However, that's my kind of run through in terms of a very kind of garbled pow approach with you, the thinking about strategy from what might be a more cooperative perspective. I'm very much looking forward to checking out on social media later on this afternoon how many of you have used the co-op PF hashtag across different social media forums to say what you really thought about this particular session. The slides will be getting made available to you afterwards. The session's been recorded, so you can go back and watch any of it again. I'm also very happy if any of you want to reach out to me online, send me connection requests or look up as well. That's great. Irina in the chat box is also shared the link for your detailed feedback forms. But I would be really interested. I want to put one question to all of you in the last. Actually, let me put this question and I can hand back to John to do the official wrap up while you're doing this in the chat box. So I need to ask you if you'd be so kind to open the chat box. Obviously, before anyone types anything, open the chat box and click on the feedback form link. Make sure you've got that. And I would like to give you the opportunity just to reflect very quickly on how you found this session, but in a way that gives everyone else a sense of, well, this is what I thought and that's what you thought. That's great. So what I want you to do is in that chat box, I want to ask you, if you could compare this last hour to a type of food, what type of food has this last hour most been like for you? No explanations needed. You don't have to put photos, just type in what the food is that this session has felt like for you. That would be great. Now, and that means from my perspective, thank you for picking this session over the others. It's been lovely to kind of see you there. Nice to see some familiar faces, nice to see some new faces. Thank you for letting me, for those I picked on, thank you for letting me pick on you and pull in as well. And I now need to hand back to John at Co-ops UK because it's the last session, it's the end of Practitioners Forum 2021. So John, what do people need to know on the big send-off?
Nothing more really other than the feedback form at the end. And thanks very much, Adrian. That was it's a hard one doing the last one of the day. But you've kept the energy levels up and some really useful insights. And so, yeah, just to reiterate to people, all the slides, all the recordings will be shared afterwards. And if there's any connections we can make for you between speakers and others, do just email them membership@uk.coop and we'll help you out. Thanks for coming, and hopefully next year we'll be back in person and all of that. So again, thanks for coming. Thanks, Adrian. See you all next time.